Welcome to another episode of Just Desserts Podcast. I'm your host, Sniperdoe. I'm doing it out without my co-host, Sniperdoe, today. But, we still going to get into it. There's still a lot of things that I got to say. First off, this is a PSA and basically a state of the Black Union. Black America, shut the fuck up. Shut all the fuck way up. We doing some undermining shit to each other that's problematic as fuck in our homes and in the country right now. And I done made some bullet points I want to go over with them so I don't forget. So forgive me for staring down at my phone a lot. But we are starting to become our own worst enemies, and it goes into our ways. But this is this isn't criticism coming from one of us. It's a celebration, and I want to explain a lot of the ways why we still have our ways and why we do the things that we do, and give you possibilities of understanding. You know what I mean? It's going to open up some new concepts and try to get our brains to working a different way, because there's a lot of us and a lot of young and uneducated that need to be put on game as the way, why we are, who we are, why we exist, and why we survive. And I had a lot of different questions myself about that, coming from a marginalized group of people in this country that was once slaves. But first, let me start off and say, we love you. I love you. We Black, we proud, and we come from that. But you gotta shut up. We are being problematic to ourselves, and we're getting ready to destroy ourselves and marginalize ourselves again, because our youth are losing our ways, and even a lot of our older ones are losing our ways. And I think the biggest problem is the internet. The internet has become a haven for the mentally ill community. You know what I mean? The most radical and undisciplined of us to vent their frustrations and try to gain some type of sense, or just to vent their frustrations. Basically, it's like a powder keg that you can just scream into and scream all the negative into. And that's this little black box you got right there, the phone. You can scream all that negative, critical, hyper analytical shit into that little black box. And all you got to do is turn your comments off, and can't nobody tell you shit. And that's a problem. So first thing, what we have to understand as Black folks is this. If you were born in 1970, after 70 to 80, you are literally a part of the first generation that was ever born into real freedom. That was born into, there were no administrative rules on the books from slavery left. Dr. King got assassinated in 1967, 1968? They were still fighting for freedom, still segregated. We shall overcome, getting sprayed with dogs and fire hoses. I'm 46. My dad was born in 1959. So he was in elementary school when Dr. King was assassinated, and they was marching and all of that. You understand? Slavery wasn't that long ago. Freedom is a fairly new concept for us. We're a race of people that are born through one big traumatic experience. And if you think about it like that, it explains a lot of our ways and the reasons that we are. But you have to understand the way that we survived through all of those things was our humility. Now, when I think about my grandparents and the way that I grew up, that generation of elders that I was around, that we were around, like, they taught us some dignity, they taught us some self-respect, but they also had humility. And I had to think about it, because our ways, born into freedom, wouldn't have played way back in the slave days. They would have killed us all. Now, on some personal shit, I just found this out recently. I have 3 uncles. My grandmother's. I was at my great-grandmother's funeral in like 1985, 1986. And for some reason, I remember it. Now, my great-grandmother is the only member that old on that side of my family that I remember. But I just found out recently through an auntie of mine that she had 3 brothers that never made the trek to Pennsylvania from Mississippi. You know what I mean? Like, my family immigrated up here from Alabama, Mississippi, South Carolina and all that back in them days. You know what I mean? She had 3 brothers that didn't make the trek because every last one of them was hung. They was lynched. And I just found this out. Now that's a very, very real possibility. You know what I mean? It's a very, you understand, like that's right there. Like I was at her funeral. These are her brothers. So when she migrated up here to Pittsburgh, which most of us, being from where we from, most of our families came from down south because of the steel mills here. You know what I mean? We're from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So the steel mills here, you could take care of a family of 8 to 10 on one steel worker's wage. And that's what most of our families did. My great grandfather came here first, called back down there to his daughter and his new son-in-law. And they came up here in like 1938 or something like that with a brand new baby, which was my oldest aunt. And my grandfather became a steel worker. So we true Pittsburghers. And that's the story of most of my generation. You know what I mean? Most of my generation here, our grandfathers and all that was steel workers, worked in them steel mills until a lot of them steel mills locked them out, shut the door. You know what I mean? So in a lot of ways, I got the anger of the steel workers that got fucked out of their pensions. So, you know, you're going to hear some of that anger from time to time. You know what I mean? Some of that rage of what it bore after that. But what we have to do is stop undermining each other. I need to break it down like this so we understand. I draw a lot of visuals when I talk. So, you know, I'm going to give you some visuals to make it understandable for the younger people. Sometimes I tend to use a little bit too many $5 words and shit. I be thinking I'm articulate and shit. You know what I mean? So here's what we do. And here's what I notice on the internet. The internet does not have a mental health evaluation. Anybody with a phone or a computer or a laptop can jump on the internet and make a page. And you can dress nice, be pretty, be smooth, talk groovy, use all the buzzwords, use all the clinical definitions, and people will follow you. And that's what I see. But what our community, the Black American community, is spewing out is a lot of rhetoric and hatred toward each other, and it's problematic. I'm gonna use some buzzwords today, what these kids like to use. It's problematic and it's toxic for us as a race of people, because what we haven't understood is we are a race born through trauma. We're just breaking the chains. Like we need a mass healing almost. There has to be a mass healing event when it comes to Black America. Now, you have to understand there's a lot of secrets within our community that we're just now dealing with. You know what I mean? I'm pretty sure everybody in my age demographic has a story about something that happened. Yeah, we were slaves, man. You know what I mean? And a lot of those ways were passed down due to the trauma. And I watch a lot of movies, you know what I mean? So I watched the real Sinners movies, and they were dropping, like the Sinners movie recently, they was dropping jewels in them. I don't know if anybody ever peeped that scene where it was, you know, Smoke talking to his brother, and he was talking about the time when he was tricking down in Tennessee. You know what I mean? Talking about he had a John, alluding to homosexuality, and that being a drawback from slavery and post-slavery. You understand? We are a race of people that's still healing. We're just new to freedom. Now, what we are doing is back to the point that I said, there's no mental health evaluation for the internet. So you have a lot of our mentally ill people on the internet being very, very influential and spewing out a lot of fucking venom toward us. And then a lot of them are misrepresenting the beauty that it is to be Black and from America. Man, we come from a rich tradition too. Our shit ain't steeped thousands and thousands of years ago, but I had a brainstorm recently. And what I realized about being Black in America is we are the only demographic of Black people in the history of the world that celebrates having Black skin. I think about Africa, and it was a continent. Now, let's say before, you know, the Dutch, the French, the Spanish, and whoever raped and pillaged and colonized Africa sat down and created a stronghold in Africa. Africa was just a lush and rich land of Black people, right? Different shades, You know what I mean? But basically all black. So it was basically like a social system. They celebrated like tribal things. They celebrated their ways, their customs, their countries. Everybody was black, so there was no need to celebrate the skin tone of being black. That's something that was born and raised here. And it's new too. I watched James Brown's movie the other day with Chadwick Boseman, you know what I mean, the Black Panther. And I realized that being black had to be a burden all the way up until somebody snapped out of it and said, hold up, man, fuck that. I'm proud to be who I am. I'm proud of this shit. This is the only country in existence where that exists. You understand? Where somebody said, man, I love this black ass flesh. Like, man, our ways and our traditions was born off of survival. You know what I mean? Out of necessity. And you have to understand that a lot of our ways came from the white man because they was the ones that brought us here or stole us from here. We were prisoners of war and beat our ways out of us and gave us theirs. So when you understand that a lot of our ways are mimicked by the ways of white people, I mean, our ways, we mimicked our ways from white people. It makes you understand systemic shit a little bit more. So what I mean by that is, let's speak about house niggas. Like, the house niggas had it worse. I said this on an episode we previously taped. House niggas had it worse. You know why? Because they had to be right there, up under massa all day. If they fucked up, dropped the fork or some shit, what you think the punishment was? Now, we take it light, you know what I mean? We talk shit on house niggas, oh, house nigga ass motherfucker and shit like that. But when Massa and them came down and said, you know what? That one, bring him into the house. It ain't like they had a fucking choice to say no. What you think the penalty for saying no would have been? So here, check this out. They took them into the house, broke them down, taught them their ways, and I'm pretty sure there was a breaking process, and I'm pretty sure they was nervous as shit to break. They was nervous as shit because they're in Massa's house, right in the direct line of fire. And you know, with any job, there's a training process, and with a training process, you're gonna make some mistakes. What you think the punishment for making a mistake was? Because you're right there. You can't cover it up. You can't blame it on nobody else. They know it was you that spilled that motherfucking picture of mint julep. They're going to break your motherfucking back, smash one of your toes with a hanger, all types of shit, right? But in that vein, they were being taught how to serve. They watched, they paid attention to the ways of Massa and his wife and his children. And what did they do? When they were allowed to go home, back to the shanties and the shacks, they took Massa's ways, the ways of the superior person, and took them back to their families. And they took dignity. They probably took pride in it too. Like, we acting like Massa, all dignified and whatnot, because being black was a burden. It just meant you was a slave. So there's no doubt that for a good portion of slavery, motherfuckers wanted to be white. So they mimicked white ways to assimilate. Like, they probably thought they were being punished for being black. So they probably thought that if they acted white, it would lessen the punishment. Like, man, I'm acting just like y'all. You understand? So you have to understand that our ways, being from this motherfucker, are their ways. You know what I mean? A lot of your dignity, a lot of the way that you carry yourself, you hold your chin high and shit like that, came from them. You know what I mean? Or it was born out of necessity once we were free. That's when we went back to our own ways, but you know we still carried them white ways with us because we had to. It was necessary for survival. Now, back to my original point about what I was saying about mentally ill being on the internet. Shut the fuck up. Y'all saying a lot of divisive shit about black American men. And I want to explain that. First thing, black women, black American women, we fucking love you. We have always supported you. We have always been your biggest supporters. And I want you to understand this because it's very systemic. Feminism. Feminism fucked up the black community. And here's why feminism fucked up the black community. Let me talk my shit for a minute, because now I'm on a roll. You know what I mean? I found my niche. I'm ready to gun you motherfuckers down. I hope you love me and shit. But feminism fucked up the black community with this, because feminism was born out of white children's rage against their fathers. White women's rage against their fathers. And you know why that rage against their fathers was? Because those white women, those white children, got to see how their fathers dismissed their white mothers. Now, we know that passing and the mulattoes were a big thing and all that back then, octoroons, quadroons, and all that shit, you know, them old archaic terms that our folks used and shit, right? We're a little bit more civilized now, though. We don't talk like that, right? You know what I mean? It's biracial. When I was coming up, it was half and half. You know what I mean? Now it's biracial and shit. You know what I mean? So we growing. We ain't as archaic as you know what I mean? As motherfuckers like to paint us out to be. So watching Massa take his ass after dinner, leave his wife, walk out of his house, go back down into the slave quarters, come back up from the slave quarters, drunk, drunk and satisfied, and not fucking his wife. What you think that did to the daughters that was growing up watching that shit? It made them fueled with anger because, you know, it's just like today. Everything that happens on the small scale happens on the large scale. You're going to hear me say this a lot during this podcast because I'm trying to make things clear to you. Everything that happens on the small scale happens on the large scale. It's how I grew to understand politics and worldviews and what's going on in our community. I understand that the ways that the little situations that I go through with maybe my girlfriend or my homies or disagreements about finances or something like that, or somebody owing me money, expand that. And that's the same shit happening in politics. It's just more people, more money, more women. That's how I understand politics. That's how I understand the world. Now let's get back to the feminism part. The rage was come, like your kids see more than you think they see. Your kids are privy to everything, every argument in the house. I know I was. When I was a kid, I listened to everything. 6 years old, I can still remember them arguments, them conversations, or whatever it is. But we always, once we become adults, we always overlook our kids. We think they don't hear or they ain't paying attention the whole time. They watched you do that shit. You know what I mean? They saw you do that shit and they remember every motherfucking word. So you have to know that it was always like that. Now, the children are being children, so they're going to get into shit that they're not supposed to get into. They're going to be places that they're not supposed to be. Now, those little children, those little girls that watch their dad, they love their dad. They want to spend time with their dad. They followed their dad down into them slave towns. And they seen their dad walk up on that porch, walk right past big old Jimbo, grab that young lady and shit, take her in that motherfucking house, and tear her down. While that little white girl watched, wondering why her mother was sitting up in the house by herself. And it was just regular until she became conscious, and then she got angry about it. And then she got married, and her husband did the same thing. You mind you, slavery went on for 700 years. This was generations of this shit, and the behavior was passed down. You understand? So they watched that and they got enraged, and they realized there was nothing they can do with it. There was nothing that they could do with it. Feminism born from that because they were under the rule of patriarchy. You understand? They were under the thumb of their men. Their men ruled supreme. There was nothing that they can do. So feminism was a necessity. The women's liberation movement, it was a necessity for them. It wasn't for us. We were always marginalized. We were slaves. Now, if you're familiar with the Willie Lynch papers, and I'm going to give you a small little excerpt of the Willie Lynch papers and tell you how we were wrong. Black women, you were wrong for aligning yourself with that, but I'm getting ready to try to absolve you. Please, I know how black women go on the attack. You raised me, you loved me my whole life. Don't attack me for this shit. I'm trying to educate you on some shit. You understand? But I know you had to align yourselves with feminism because it was either align ourselves with it or be a victim to it. JBL, state property, Beanie Siegel, get down or lay down. You know what I mean? So that's basically the implied attitude of feminism. And black women, having seen the viciousness of white women, knew that. We either got to get down with these motherfuckers or they going to run us the fuck over. We going to be public enemy number one. All they going to do is run to Massa and tell Massa and the white establishment during those times, and they'll make us public enemy number one. They'll make black femininity public enemy number one. We have to align ourselves with them or they will kill us. And then they'll focus on our men. So it was necessary for survival. Now let me go back to the feminist movement. The rage of those daughters who watched their daddies go down into the shanty towns and come back home drunk, clothes all disheveled, not even touching their wives. The misery and agony of their mothers. Then a few months later, watching a whole bunch of biracial children pop up with their daddy's features, knowing that that was their brother or sister, little nigger baby. You know what I mean? It's my brother, that's my sister. And then Massa just may be ignorant or dominant enough to say, you know what, I like that girl. I'm gonna make him my houseboy, and brought him in the house amongst his white wife and his daughter, and she watched her mother accept it. But her mother knew. You understand? Feminism was born from that. They were under the thumb of their men. Now, the Willie Lynch papers state this. When the slaves cut up, the breaking of a slave, you take the strongest male slave on a plantation. You bring all the slaves out. You take 4 horses, point them in opposite directions, north, south, east, west. You tie one limb to one horse, one limb to another horse, one limb to one horse, and one limb to another horse. So all 4 of his limbs are pointed different ways. You blindfold the horse, you have the whole plantation of slaves sitting out there. And then you smack the horses on the ass. And you rip the slave apart in front of all the other slaves. The biggest, strongest slave that there is in front of every slave on the plantation. The terror that would inflict in the whole plantation, black motherhood's gonna step up. And this is where we have our problem. Now it's getting ready to be layered, you understand? So the issue is once that happens, it strikes terror in everybody around. Now, personalities are personalities. You know what I mean? Just because we're free now don't mean personalities didn't exist back then. So you had to know that every slave didn't have the same personality. There were some motherfuckers that had that rebel in them, or else Nat Turner wouldn't have existed. And there was some Harriet Tubman wouldn't have existed. And there were some motherfuckers that bowed down. Yes, sir, boss, shucking and jiving and shit, because that was their way for survival. Now, the biggest key when it came to slavery had to be survival, or else I wouldn't be sitting here right now. My last name is Lindsay, man. We lost our connection with Africa a long time ago. You know what I mean? Far back, I can go about 5, 6 generations when we was in Alabama. Don't let me lose my place, though. So let's go back to the Willie Lynch papers. The black mother that was standing there and watched her husband just get drawn and quartered was no more. She would cling to that black little boy that she loved. Right there. And it would strike so much terror in there that from there, the black mother would become dominant. She would raise that little boy to be physically strong, but spiritually and mentally weak, because she never wanted him to be picked out and chosen to be drawn and quartered. She would protect her son and her children at all times. We have been under the matriarchy ever since then. The matriarchy in Black America has always ran our homes. We always bowed to our women. You've always been our queens, and you know that. You have always raised us. You know what I mean? And if I'm looking at the ways of my grandparents, my grandmother was the same way. My whole neighborhood know my grandmother. You understand? And my grandmother was a queen, strong, rude when she wanted to be, but classy and elegant as hell. And my grandfather was a strong, dignified dude who didn't talk a whole bunch. He ruled our house silently. My grandmother was the motion in the house. My grandmother was the coordinator. And my grandfather was the stoic man that stood in the background. He symbolized his strength. I like to think of black men, us, as the oak trees of a family. We're strong, dignified, we bend, but we don't break. You understand? That's who we have to be in our families. You understand? Now, throughout the throughout us having freedom and experiencing freedom, it exists. It switched a little bit. Back in the slave days, you had to understand that there was a a small layer of dignity underneath a big layer of humility and fear. You understand? If you look at it as human, if you look at the attitude and the ways of a slave meant to survive, there had to be a little bit of dignity, but a lot of humility and a lot of fear. Or else we wouldn't have survived. They would have killed us off and went and grabbed them and tried to go over and grab like some Indians or something like that and make them slaves. You know what I mean? They got beautiful melanin in their skin too. You know what I mean? So we have always been under the rule of the patriarchy. So with the indoctrination of the feminist movement, Gloria Steinem, you know what I mean, who started Planned Parenthood, which was really nothing but what was it? What's the word that I'm looking for? Neutralization. You know what I mean? Nas said it in one mic. Hood rats don't abortion your wombs. We need more warriors soon. Right there. Now, if you think back, just take that statement and push it back 40 years with the feminist movement. You know what I mean? Planned Parenthood. When they came through, hey man, the fathers ain't around and shit like that. You should unwanted pregnancies and shit like that. Kill these black babies. Kill them. Yeah, we needed more of us. We were a race of people that were born from traumatic events anyway. We were bred, you understand? So here's where the feminist movement played in with black femininity. Black femininity has always ruled the black family structure. The white family structure was always ruled by patriarchy due to the Willie Lynch papers telling you that black matriarchy always ruled the black family structure. So when black women aligned themselves with feminism, it really wasn't their problem. It wasn't your problem. But I understand why y'all had to align yourselves with it, because you had to have an ear in the room. You understand? But I think the problem is now somebody lost the message. You know what I mean? Throughout generations, somebody forgot to pass the message on that we're just an ear in the room. We don't mimic these ways because that's not the power structure in our families. We run our families. You know what I mean? And now you have a generation of very, very angry women who don't respect and love the black man as a concept, as an ideal, or even want us. And it's problematic because here's the problem. You take, all right, I look at our last names as we're the natives here. Last names like Jones, Smith, Robinson. You know what I mean? We got the names of our slave masters. So I'm like, all right, we're natives. We're black Americans. You understand? There's a tradition and a history with that shit. That means you have a strength with you because you survived this shit. Ingrained in your DNA, you have a strength in you. You survived some extreme conditions for 700 motherfucking years. And then the systematic shit that was laid out after that, you survived that. Now, there's an indoctrination of their ways becoming ours to the point of detriment. And now we have a whole young generation of women who don't respect or love black men and our ideals and what we represent before they even had experiences with black men. And you see it younger and younger when they get on the internet and they say all this shit about, you know what I mean, dustball ass dudes and our ways and shit like that. And you know, it's like, man, yeah, that ain't us. Y'all misrepresenting the shit out of us. And when you misrepresent it, and I think this is where the problem lies, we forget that the internet is worldwide, right? Like the internet is worldwide. It's not just some shit your neighborhood is going to see. There's some motherfucker all the way in Africa or in France and shit like that you ain't never met in your life that's watching you talk this way about your men. And they believe you. And what happens? They spread those ways by word of mouth. Or everybody got them little phones now and they paying attention. And they think like, all right, that's how they are. Now, People in India. All right, well, that's how they are. Their own women are saying that they're like that. So that's how they are. So they see no value in us. So when they come over here, a lot of the times they look at us with a side eye like, man, y'all own women say this about y'all. So we're treated like that in a lot of different, you know what I mean? We're treated like that from the rip. And then you have to pay attention that no other race of woman does that. No other demographic of woman does that. You don't see Mexican women talking bad about Mexican men in mass. You don't see Asian women speaking bad about Asian women. Asian men in mass. You don't hear Indian women speaking ill of Indian men in mass the way that we do. Now, here's where the absolution of that comes into play. Once again, we're a race of people. The Black American is a race of people that was born through a big traumatic event. And necessity breeds ingenuity. So we had to survive. Now, here's where the absolution comes into play. You know the reason why you do that, black woman? Because you fucking had to. But you have to be conscious we're free now. It's ingrained into your DNA. Scientists don't understand DNA, but you do when you think about it. I'm getting ready to tell you why you understand how DNA and genetics work. You had to do that. You had to devalue us. The only problem is we don't realize there's a cutoff date for it because we're free. Now, let's go back into the slave days. You're on the internet right now, devaluing the shit out of me, us. Let's personalize it. I don't want to say black woman. Let's just say my black wife. My beautiful black wife is on the internet and she's upset with me. I ain't living up to her expectations. She takes it to the internet. My husband ain't shit. He don't take off the trash. He ain't making me come. He's doing all this sucker shit. He's a boy. He's a little man. You know what I mean? Somebody's watching that all over. You know why you had to do that? But I know you love me. Like I know you love me. Once we make up, you get off that net, you lay down with me, you put your head on my chest, rub my shoulders. I know you love me, but here's the reason why you do it. I just need you to be aware of why you do it. Let's go way, way back. Massa coming down. You are the woman that Massa's been raping. How's that little niglet you got there? The fear in you. He ain't shit, boss. Look kind of strong to me. Nah, he dumb as all hell. Can't get right for anything in the world. He's a piece of shit. I swear I'd kill him dead if you wouldn't beat me for it, because he your property. You had to devalue us to save us. Ingenuity is born from necessity. You had to. You had to devalue us or else they would take us. You ever seen Chappelle's show and Paul Mooney said, man, don't like me too much. White people will come and take me. That. You understand? So that's why you do that in mass. Have you ever seen, and I'm pretty sure you might have seen it now. You might have seen somebody do it. Like, man, ask about their kids, man, they bad as hell. All over the place, won't listen for shit. You don't even know why you did it. We're not until like somebody brings it to your attention. Then it's like light bulb moment. Like, oh shit. Yeah, you did that 700 years ago too. To stop massing them from taking that baby away from you and taking him up into the house with his wife. You know what I mean? His wife would have beat him to death. So you devalued us to protect us. The only problem is now we're free. We need you to stop doing it. Remember, we are the oak trees. We need you to understand that. It's very, very problematic because these folks are starting to believe it. Back in, it was a big psychological trick on us. You know what I mean? Now we're waking up and we have to break these ways out. You know what I mean? Back in 2004, I'll never forget, there was an article in the newspaper. Now, like I said, man, I'm a Black American and I'm from here. You know what I mean? Like, we're literally from here. I can't call an auntie or a relative over in Africa and telling them I'm coming over to Nigeria or Eritrea this summer and I need aunt such and such to make the fufu. I like the way that she make it. We don't have that connection. We lost that connection a long time ago. We know one language, this shit, English. So much, we know English so much that they came up with a whole different way for the way that we talk, and they called it Ebonics. You know what I mean? Like we're American as shit. So with knowing that, you have to understand that there's some ways that have to be broken. You have to realize back in 2004, the Latino community overtook us in population. You know, I understand? That means Dominicans, Cubans, Puerto Ricans, Mexicans. You know what I mean? We'll leave the Spaniards, the Europeans out. We're talking about the Latinos like us. You know what I mean? They overtook us in population. How? We're from here. We're literally from here. So we're a marginalized group again, a small demographic. We're all minorities and shit like that. But here's what we have to understand as Black Americans. We need to bridge that gap between us and them, us and the African diaspora that's coming over here. You know what I mean? Because the African community is huge, and they don't have our ways or assimilate amongst us a lot of times. Some of them do a great job of mimicking because they're still learning our ways, but they don't know what we went through here. That's why there's this big discrepancy between the African community and the Black community of understanding. Now, we all know that old adage where they say Africans don't like Black people from over here. They say we lazy, and they don't know how we haven't ascended. You know what I mean? Because Africans is brilliant, so a lot of them come over here and they prosper very, very fast. I think what happens is they don't realize the reason why they prosper very fast is because we paid the price. We were the first wave. The motherfuckers that got the last names of their slave masters and shit. The motherfuckers that never got their 40 acres and a mule. The motherfuckers that every time we built something, white folks got jealous and came and tore it the fuck down and slaughtered us. So we need to build that bridge, and I look at this as a way of building that bridge. So they understand this is why we are the way that we are. You know what I mean? Our customs and our traditions are new. Freedom is new to us, if you want to be honest. You know what I mean? So right now, I'm trying to make you aware that we need the Black community from America to stop exposing the weakness in itself. Because here's what happens. If there's a group of us and we pick one person out of that group that we always crack jokes on, we always crack jokes on that one dude, right? And that's just what it is. You know what I mean? Kick him in his ass, clip him, clown him. What happens when new people come into that group? They assimilate into that group and they see that one dude, we keep picking on him. He's a clown, he's this, he's that. After a certain amount of time, they're going to do the same thing. You understand? They're going to start picking on him too. They're going to start clowning him because it's trendy, because it's just what you do. That's what we're doing to each other on a global scale. And it's problematic because we're not being taken serious when yet and still we are a very, very serious community, a very dignified community. Our mentally ill are leading the way and are speaking for us and have too many soapboxes where we need our most dignified and stoic people to be our spokesman. We got too many mentally ill motherfuckers hanging around places where we need dignity, hanging around hospitals, hanging around institutions, spewing out ideals. And then let's not forget about the crack epidemic. You remember, like, you know what I mean? If you're my age or anywhere close to my age, you remember like growing up in the 80s and shit? Crack babies? You know what I mean? What crack did to our families and shit like that? Yeah, you know that generation of crack babies is like grown now? You know what I mean? They out here just grown, influencing shit on the internet. Some of them is rich in the motherfucker. Born in the 80s, crack baby. You know what I mean? Kind of fucked me up when I thought about it. Like, oh shit, them motherfuckers grown as hell now. Violent. You know what I mean? You remember New Jack City? Or was it with Deep Cover? Deep Cover, where he was like, man, have you ever seen a crack baby, John? You know what I mean? It screams for hours. It grew up. It never really learned. It has learning disabilities. It's violent. can't empathize, you know what I mean? Yeah, that shit was true. Now look at the circumstances of the people around you. Think about some of the people that you know. And I guarantee you be like, oh shit, it's gonna fuck you up. You know what I mean? Now, once again, I'm black, I'm from here. Don't try to undermine what I'm saying or try to attack me. I'm you. Motherfucker, I love you. I am you. You know what I mean? Here's the thing that black folks in America that have them last names that we got don't understand. Every black person in America for years, up until recent times, has had the same experience in America if you're black and you're from America. And that is, we all came from poverty. So the ways that came from poverty and the things that we had to do to survive were passed around. That's why our culture is everywhere. It's the same everywhere we go. The survivor's mentality. You understand? We all have survival instincts and a strength that comes from not having and having to be innovative. You know what I mean? It's where the term nigger rigging comes from. Like, you know what I mean? You jerry doctor something up, they call it nigger rigging and shit. You know what I mean? Because it's what we had to do because we didn't have the finances to go out and just flat out buy what we needed. So we had to come up with different ways. You understand? That's where our great inventors came from. You know what I mean? Ingenuity is born from necessity. We are survivors and we've always been survivors. Let's stop undermining ourselves on that internet, man. Just to get some likes and some views. It's problematic as fuck. And it's kind of embarrassing and shit. Because if I'm keeping it funky with you, we just look less sexy than we really is. You know what I mean? Some of the sexiest motherfuckers walking on the face of the earth, black Americans and shit. And we just look like, you know what I mean? And I only know this due to my dealings with different people from the international community. We look like the can't get rights. And I know that ain't us. You know what I mean? We're a very, very proud people. Dignified, loving, honest, hardworking, and some motherfucking warriors. And that's just what it gotta be. But I think the problem is the thing that had us surviving all those years, even if you watch those old movies, let's take a current one, Sinners. Now you watch Sinners and you look at the way that black people treated each other. We still loved each other because we had to bond together as a community because we all didn't have shit. You know what I mean? So we had to bond together as a community to survive. We had to look out for each other. Now that we're all experiencing this mass independence, it's like we don't love each other no more. So we don't look out for each other. It's like we have these cutthroat tactics. You know what I mean? We got some very, very cutthroat ways and we're adopting that from who? Because that ain't us. That ain't us, you know what I mean? Like we ain't never had that cutthroat shit in our community. We always had to bond together because we always had to help each other up. You know what I mean? Gloria, can I borrow some food? I'm dead broke. We don't have that no more. It's like we got this lack of love for each other, you know what I mean? And it's weird. It's very problematic. And if I'm just keeping it funky, that's not the way that we survive. We survive by loving each other and being unified. You watch Sinners and you see like even when Smoke came outside and he had to shoot the dudes in their ass that was in his truck. It was like, yeah, man, you know what I mean? Like, go ahead on now. You know what I mean? He ain't like try to finish him or no shit like that. He shot him in his ass to teach him a lesson, but there was still empathy there. There was still love. There was still like, I know you knew you was doing something wrong and I shot you in your ass for it. You know what I mean? And he was like, all right, man, well, I'm all right until you shot me in my ass. You know what I mean? Like, well, you knew what you was doing with some fucked up shit. And that's where you got what you got. Like, all right, now, like, you know what I mean? Hey, Grace, do your dad still know how to, you know what I mean? He's still a doctor. Like, yeah, all right, get him patched up. You know what I mean? For me. That was us. And if you look at all of our movies, especially that was period pieces, that was the dynamic between black folks in every movie. So you know art imitates life, life imitates art. That's how we were. Now take that same scenario right now in 2025. What you think is going to happen? I come outside, you come outside, you catch some motherfucker in your trunk trying to rip your kicker out. You know what I mean? Or whatever the fuck you got in your trunk. You know what I mean? What you gonna do? You gonna tear his motherfucking head off, ain't you? You gonna stand over and shoot that nigga for 15 minutes straight because you have no love for that motherfucker's life. There ain't no motherfucking empathy whatsoever for who he is in his life and shit because we're starting to lose the love for each other. And the fucked up part about it is that that's not how we survive. We survive that shit by loving each other. You know what I mean? By having empathy. It's like the further, it's going to be fucked up to hear me say this shit. The further that we get away from bondage, the less that we love each other because with independence comes the less that you need another person. You understand? Like when there's communal things, you have to depend on each other. So you have to work together. Frankie Beverly and Mays, man, working together. That was a celebration of us and our ways. That's our community. But now there's this independence that we have that comes with financial gain. Where it's like, shit, I don't need nobody. Now, you can echo those same sentiments by the state of black men and black women. Black women are being, first off, black women are brilliant and you are the number one educated demographic in the United States. And that's fact. Now, with that, you hear more and more educated women saying they can't find a man. They can't find a husband. Well, with that independence and that education comes some ways, you know what I mean? And then you get set in those ways because I don't need no motherfucker. I don't gotta compromise, you know what I mean? Like, I don't need no motherfucker, nigga. I ain't gotta compromise on shit. I got me, you know what I mean? It wasn't like that before. Woman needed man, man needed woman. You understand? There were no gender roles in our fucking households neither. You know what I mean? My grandmother and my grandfather was together for 50 something years. When my grandmother passed away, my grandfather went right after her a year within the same year due to a broken heart. And when I grew up, that's who I was raised by, my grandparents from Alabama and shit. When I grew up, there was no gender roles in my house. My grandfather cooked too. My grandfather washed clothes too. Because we did whatever worked. You understand? So when you started empathizing with those women and gender roles and all that type of shit, that wasn't us. Not only did we take care of us, we took care of theirs too. And it's like, y'all, it's like we tend to forget that type of shit, but it's all documented right there in the movies. You know what I mean? Movies ain't nothing but documents of the attitudes and the ways of those particular days. And that's how you keep track of it. You can track it. All you got to do is go back and watch this. And a lot of it is very, very biblical in nature. You know what I mean? Even now you can get the lessons out of them that they put down in the Bible. We'll get into that in later episodes and shit. Something called a divine spark. Even if you don't believe in God, all you got to do is cross-reference the Bible with some of the things that you're seeing, like watching Enemy of the State or something and be like, oh, this is just like this and that. David and Goliath. Anytime a smaller opponent takes on a bigger opponent. You know what I mean? You can look at that as a parallel for the United States versus Vietnam. You understand? It's just the way that you see it. You understand? So, yeah, we have to get back to loving each other and understanding that community is the way that we survive. Humility. And it's switched now. Before I was talking about during slavery, there had to be a little bit of dignity. A little bit of dignity in them. A lot of humility and fear. Well, now we're in a place where it gets to switch. You get to have a lot of dignity on top of your humility, or a layer of dignity on top of your humility, and you can lead with it and you ain't gonna be hung from a tree for it. But let's not forget when it was the other way, because the other way is what kept us the fuck alive. You understand? And I always fear cosmos. I fear cosmically. You know what I mean? If you want to look back at, I'm kind of spiritual, so if you want, we can look at biblical times and, Sodom and Gomorrah and all of that. You know what I mean? Because let's just put this out in there, man. We are the lost tribe of Shabazz. We are the lost tribe of Shabazz. The motherfuckers that don't have no connection with their homeland and our language, our customs and our ways and our traditions. And we created this. We created this shit. This is what we created. This is who we are. And I stand proud in it because I don't know nothing else. So if you look at those ways, we're a very, very proud people. And the way that we survived was through our humility. Let's not forget that. And let's not hang each other out to dry either, because it's starting to look corny. We look corny as fuck doing it. And I'm paying attention to the other people. Just like I said before, when somebody else comes in the group and after a minute, they start treating motherfuckers like that, I'm starting to pay attention. And that's what's happening here. We look less sexy. We don't look as cool no more. Motherfuckers don't want to be like us no more. They can mimic our ways to a certain extent, but act like them. That ain't our ways. It's a misrepresentation of who we are. Even the way that we carry ourselves and deal with adversity, deal with racism. You understand? Deal with being disrespected and slighted. There's a way that we do it here as motherfuckers who've always had to deal with it. And then you're seeing the ways of others that look like us are dealing with it. And it's a misrepresentation because that look like us, the motherfuckers is beautiful just like us. It's our job to teach them, no, this is how you handle that. Like, no, this is how you handle that. Chill out, y'all. Go ahead, yo. Go ahead, young bucks. You know what I mean? There's a misrepresentation of us and it looks like us, and we can't afford that. And the last thing now we can afford is to keep saying we don't need everybody. We don't need everybody, because the numbers are getting bigger and bigger. And the last thing you want is people that look like you coming here and empathizing with others, adopting the others' ways. Because then you got an enemy. Then you got spies that can walk right in your motherfucking household. If if they can make a clone and shit like that, and that clone of your wife can walk in your door, and you ain't even gonna pay attention, what could she do? What habit could she wreak in your home? She could sit there and listen to everything that you say, listen to the way that you speak to her, and right when it gets to that part when she gotta fuck you, she could walk out the motherfucking door. I gotta go to the store, honey. I'll be right back, and never come back. That's what we're dealing with here, and it's like a time that we realize that's what we're dealing with here. Because if we keep it up, we're headed towards something where it's going to be a more marginalization. I don't want no new fucking masters. You know what I mean? Now, if you look around and you look at the state of your, just look at your local convenience stores. When we was growing up, who owned it? Who owned them? Mr. Johnson and them. You know what I mean? Good old Mr. Dan owned the pharmacy in your corner. You know what I mean? Owned the local drugstore and shit like that. You know what I mean? White dude. Jewish dude, something like that. You know, American shit. Growing up in our generation, America was coming from our shit, Northeast, it was black and white. You know what I mean? Black, white, and Puerto Rican and shit. You know what I mean? White folks owned them stores. You know, in New York and all them, they had bodegas and shit like that. But white folks owned them stores. You look around now, who owns the stores in your neighborhood? It ain't Mr. Johnson and Mr. Dan and them no more, ain't it? It's Rajit. You know what I mean? Mr. Patel and shit like that. You know what I mean? And they ain't too kind. You know what I mean? They own the stores in our neighborhood. The motherfuckers don't live next door to us, do they? But they got that authority over you because you're going to spending your money with them. It's not the other way around. I don't want no new fucking masters. We need motherfuckers to empathize with us and our ways and what we went through here. We don't need, you know what I mean? We don't need no more motherfucking enemies, and we don't need no mentally ill, dismissive motherfuckers being a representation of us saying like, man, fuck them. You know what I mean? We don't need them, fuck them. These are people that don't understand the art of war, tactics. These are people that ain't never been in a big fight. They ain't never been in a melee. They ain't never had to stand back to back with another motherfucker and throw. You know what I mean? They ain't know what it feels like to get jumped and have to put your back against the wall and just throw them bitches. You understand? You're going to need somebody to come in from the side and steal one of them motherfuckers off you. Why the fuck are we alienating the motherfuckers that can steal somebody and get a motherfucker up off us? You understand? There's a rich tradition of us here, and we have to share that tradition. That's what I aim to do with this podcast. So this shit catch your eye, you know what I mean? Which I should. I'm a groovy motherfucker, you know what I mean? So let me catch your eye. You getting real nigga shit. This is real nigga shit we spitting here. Intelligent, dignified men that been through everything. This is experience here. You understand? You see these motherfucking grades? This is experience here. You getting real nigga shit. Intelligent, articulate, smart, albeit groovy. And I hope you think I'm sexy in a motherfucker because I'm single and shit. So I keep saying this shit over and over. Don't let their ways become yours, man. Because a lot of y'all starting to act like them. And that ain't us. That ain't how we survive. Before I leave, I want to leave you with one more tidbit. Maybe that you never thought about. I talked about it with a couple of my guys, my co-host who's not here today. We're going to go more in depth to it and shit like that. But you think about the Great Depression. We're Americans, so we're familiar with every motherfucking economic crush, recession, war, skirmish that America had. You understand? There's a lot of military men in my family going all the way back to my grandfather. And I don't know if you ever considered it. You remember the Great Depression when we read about it and shit like that, and how like white folks was like jumping off roofs and killing each other, and white men were abandoning their families? I thought about it one day and I was like, well, how did we survive that shit? How did the black community survive the Great Depression? And here, I'm going to give you the quick answer of how we survived the Great Depression. Because we were segregated. We weren't even allowed to assimilate into that system to be a victim to it. We were always off to the side. And we prospered amongst each other. You understand? Like, we prospered amongst each other because we were always in poverty. It didn't matter. That was just what we was used to. It affected the motherfuckers that was at the top. We weren't allowed to be a part of the reindeer game, so we couldn't be affected by it. You understand? You remember I told you my dad was born in 1959. There was still segregation and shit going on. You understand? So the reason why the black community survived the Great Depression was because we were already off on our own, struggling, but thriving and happy and coming up with our own ways. Ingenuity is born from necessity. Remember that. That is the tagline when it comes to us, Black America. Ingenuity is born from necessity. Why the fuck you think you so special? Why the fuck you think all that great music, all them great athletes, everything comes from us? Because we were at the bottom and we were always trying to prove that we were just as good as the people that subjugated us. That's where the ingenuity came from. Ingenuity is born out of necessity. And then that natural fucking flair and style that you got. You understand that dip, our ways, the way that I sit right now, the way I can look you in your motherfucking face with my head high. This is who we are. Motherfuckers got to stop forgetting that. That's how we survived the motherfucking Great Depression. And you know what happened during the Great Depression? I forget what year it was, but I know it coincides. It was the time for thriving with the black community, or just survival. You know what I mean? It was status quo. It didn't affect us to the point of like, what's the name? Because we always had our own shit. We had our own crops and all that type of shit because white folks didn't want to fuck with us too much. You know what I mean? So seeing as how it was that, imagine that. Imagine the wage disparity. White folks have always been up here and black folks have always been down here, but it's just like that. Then there's the great economic crash of the Great Depression. And now it's going down here. White folks is going down here. Now you have Green, Archer, and Pine is just one. Tulsa, Oklahoma, Black Wall Street. A time of thriving for the black community. Tartarian Empire #2. You know what I mean? Anunnaki's freed again. You know what I mean? The prisoners of war is back amongst their flock and can handling business as usual. The Great Depression was like this for white America, and Green, Archer, and Pine in Tulsa, Oklahoma, Black Wall Street was doing this, coming up. And what happened? Some white folks paid attention and said, yeah, we can't have that. Too fresh out of slavery. Imagine if the scales would have got tipped back then. Black folks was still angry. You know what I mean? These niggas ain't forgot what the fuck happened during slavery. So you know money wins all wars. You know what I mean? Now imagine white folks getting down here financially and black folks getting up here financially. There would have been war in the streets. There would have been anarchy. Uh, so this is where I believe white supremacy was born from. There was a need to keep us down, to keep us under thumb, to keep white America here and us down here. So there was a racist sheriff that came through and seen how black folks was living in them streets and shit in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and said, let's talk nigga shit. He basically did the Rico and Belly, chewing a banana. I don't like that shit. I don't like that shit at all. Yeah, them niggas rolling real hard down there, slinging big rocks. You know what I mean? I don't like that shit. All right, yo, man, I'm gonna go over to my homies. I was like, Jimmy, man, you still got that crop duster? Like, yeah, I got it, Sheriff. Hey, man, let me use that. Hey, Dave, you got them sticks of dynamite, right? Like, yeah, I got them. I got an idea. Because ain't no motherfucking way in hell I'm gonna be over here eating ears of corn while these motherfucking niggas is over here eating neck bones. Like, but you don't even eat neck bones, Sheriff. Fuck it, it's meat. And I'm eating, mine's eating corn and they eating neck bones. Fuck that. You know what I mean? Here, go take me up in that crop duster and shit. I'm gonna light the sticks of dynamite. What you getting ready to do? What you getting ready to do, Sheriff? I'm getting ready to throw these bitches right down on them niggas. Fuck them niggas. The first documented case of airborne warfare in American history happened on us because it was a time of thriving in the black community. And there was a time of not so good in white America. Now, don't get me wrong, white America was still here, you know what I mean? But black folks was climbing. I think some motherfucker was Rico and Belly. You know what I mean? I told you, like, you have to understand, even when you watch our movies, we were taught these ways from white folks. So when you see them played out, all you're doing is watching what white folks did to us time and time again. Now we just do it to each other. I don't like that shit, man. Them New York niggas is slanging real hard. I don't like that shit. I don't like that shit at all. There you go right there. That's motherfucking, that's what happened to Black Wall Street. Now just take Rico out and put a racist ass sheriff. Man, them niggas ain't supposed to be eating neck bones and I'm eating corn. I don't like that shit. I don't like it at all. We own them motherfuckers. You want them motherfuckers getting bigger than you? I don't want them getting bigger than me. Fuck that. We gonna destroy their shit. You know what I mean? Now you niggas is eating corn too. As a matter of fact, you niggas ain't eating corn. You eating grains, nigga. Because y'all ain't getting huskier than me. Because if you get stronger than me, what the fuck you think gonna happen then? You might try to best me. And that right there might have been the basis for white supremacy in America. If you just consider it as a theory. A lot of this shit is theoretical, you understand? But that's what my aim is, to get you to open your eyes to the possibilities of some things. And, you know, don't let their ways become yours. Don't lose your motherfucking humility. Salute.
I'm Sniperdoe.
I'm Sniperdoe.
This is Just Desserts Podcast. Don't let their ways become yours.